It all boils down to the cost of capital, is what a company has to pay in order to borrow money, because ultimately the electric grid is very capital intensive and requires lots of investments. When you build a transmission line, it can run, as the NECEC line shows, $1 billion. CMP over the next 20 or 30 years, or maybe Maine more generally over the next 20 or 30 years, is going to have to spend probably close to 5 billion, maybe more, to upgrade its grid in order to handle beneficial electrification. That is all of us plugging in our cars, heating our homes with heat pumps rather than gas furnaces or oil furnaces. And then also to handle all the renewable generation that's going to have to be developed in order to support that, including lots of solar and offshore wind. So just like, when we all went from one-car families to two-car families, we had to build more roads to handle it. When we now beneficially electrify the society, we have to build more transmission grids, and that's going to require investments. So if you can make those investments at a cheap cost, there's borrow money less expensively, then the cost will be much less for you to do this than it otherwise would. And ultimately, a consumer-owned utility, or what Pine Tree Power is going to be, a municipal, that entity can borrow money at around 1/3 the cost of what it costs a company like CMP or its parents, Avangrid and Iberdrola, to borrow money at. And if we can borrow money less expensively, then we can build out our grid less expensively than CMP would otherwise do it, and Versant as well. This formula is nothing new to CMP or to Maine. There are lots of consumer-owned utilities around the country, some in Maine, but most of them in the Midwest, some of them in big cities like Austin and Sacramento and Chattanooga that own their own utilities. And they are borrowing money today to build out those grids at a much lower cost. And that's ultimately the economics of the situation.